I'm Rebecca Fearman. Welcome to the Immaculate Conception Church, Mission Church at Stepstone. We're situated here in Pendleton County on a 3-acre lot donated by Michael Faulhaber, one of a family, 8 families of immigrants that came from Bavaria, Germany, Ireland, and France and Switzerland. There were 8 families that settled in this area. It was the midway point between Cincinnati, Ohio, and Maysville, Kentucky by steamboat. So it was a port that was fairly important, and people would come and settle here because of the familiar area and the ability to hopefully grow some vineyards here. Michael Faulhaber donated this land, 3 acres. It was cleared by his family and the other families that came here so that a church could be built in this spot. Originally in 1850, a log cabin was built that was a gathering place for the families, a school for the children so they could learn German, and also served as a church once a month or whenever they could get a priest to come out here. In 1860, they were given permission to begin building a church, the logs of which were taken to a local sawmill and cut to the right size. And this church was built and christened the Immaculate Conception Mission Church at Stepstone after the 1854 dogma set in place by the Catholic Church declaring the Immaculate Conception of Mary. The cemetery is unique because it's very steep and very old. There are evidence of stones from the early 1860s in the cemetery. There are some unmarked stones at the very top of the hill where they began burying their family as the need arose. Like I said, inside the church, there are many pieces, furnishings, and fixtures that are authentic to that time period. This church has never had electricity or heat. The area became known as Stepstone or Immaculate Conception. The church name got long, so a lot of people just started calling it the Stepstone Church. One other thing that makes this particular church unique is that it was built in 1861, and it is original, but it is a Kentucky landmark since 1983, and it is the only church in the Diocese of Covington that is still in use as a log-framed church. And we also know that the Catholic Church was important to them because they literally brought the body of Christ with them. Tradition has it that Michael Faulhaber and his group that traveled with him were worried about being able to find a crucifix to put in a church. So he had the arms sawed off of a corpus, the body of Christ, to hang on a crucifix. Both of the arms were sawed off. It was wrapped in some fine cloth, and it was stuffed in one of the 2 suitcases that his niece was allowed to carry when she came to America from Frittlingen, Germany. When they got here to America, one of the first tasks that they set to was repairing the corpus and finding the right tree to create the cross and then connect those to make the crucifix. And there were scattered priests. There were not very consistent masses here until about 1903. There's a handwritten German letter from Charlie Rust, who asked the bishop at that time for permission to have a retired priest say Mass. So the retired priest was given a room to live with the Rust family that also lived just down the road, and he was able to say Mass here every other week and at another location closer to Augusta, Kentucky also. The reason they did that was because back in horse and buggy days or boat days, it was not very easy travel to either St. Peter and Paul Church, St. Joseph Church, or Corpus Christi in Newport, or even Augusta for St. Augustine. That continued till approximately 1920 or 21, when the priest from St. Peter and Paul was given permission to say a Mass here, and he would say a Mass here on once a month on Saturdays, and then any other masses that the parishioners wanted to attend, they would attend at St. Peter and Paul. but there's many pictures from the time period of First Communions in this area, and that one event in 1921 that shows the parish growing from just a few small families to a very large crowd of people here on the front steps. One song that's always been important to this church, and every time there's a Mass played here, this song is played, and it's called Faith of Our Fathers song. The lyrics of Faith of Our Fathers include, "Faith of our fathers, a living faith." That song is very fitting for this church, and I think one of the reasons it's always played here is because it truly is a faith of our fathers. From the immigrants that came, the gifts that they gave to the church. Some of the tradition has it that Michael Faulhaber and some of the founding families asked that people not give money back if they donated, or not pay the loan back if they had a loan, but they asked that they please donate something to the church. So many items were donated. The ciborium, or the monstrance where the Eucharist was kept, many glass flowers, those coming from Italy. Some of the furnishings, the vestments that the priests would wear, were created from wedding dresses or ordered from other countries. The confessional and the sacristy and the nativity were donated, as well as the statue of Mary out on the lawn. The organ was also donated by the parish families in 1881, and it stayed in the loft of the church until 1983, when it had to be lifted over the side with ropes. After it was restored, it was decided to keep it in the bottom of the church. One fun story that I enjoy about the organ in church is that the last time it was played was shortly before September of 1941. A week before the wedding of Clarence William Record and Martha Massey, the bellows were found that the mice had chewed through all of the bellows, and so they could not use that organ. So luckily a parishioner in church was able to play the violin for their wedding, and that was the last wedding that was here in the church. And slightly before that was the last time the organ had been played, prior to 1983. The nativity that's in the church was brought by the Faulhaber family and used in one of their homes, but was moved to the church each Christmas so that the church would have a nativity. And then after the passing of whomever's family it was in at the time, that was decided that it be left here in the church. The statue on the lawn is a statue of Mary. The original statue of Mary was Italian marble, and in the 1980s it was stolen. It mysteriously disappeared. About a month later, a concrete statue was delivered there, and the concrete statue was housed first in a wooden shrine and now in a concrete shrine. It was donated about 15 years ago. And the large statue of Jesus on the lawn was also donated by a descendant of one of those first families upon her death. She had made a request that that statue be donated here and placed at the Stepstone Mission Church as well. This church is still in use today. It is used approximately 3 times a year for masses. Sometimes they are masses for the St. Peter and Paul Parish. Sometimes they are masses from other parishes that groups of people want to come out and hear about it and see it, or they're masses for a special purpose, an anniversary mass, a renewal of wedding vows, something like that. But as a parish, we have mass here at least once a year, sometimes twice, depending on the weather. The Feast of the Immaculate Conception is December 8th, so we can't always have mass here without any heat or electricity. But in September, there is a mass, late September or early October, there is a mass, and it's our cemetery visitation mass. So after the mass, then a rosary is said and prayers are said for the people that are buried here, but also for their descendants, wherever they may be. And many years, it's a social event as well, because we'll have a lunch in a nearby house or in a nearby facility that we can have, more of a family reunion type of feel after the mass is over and reconnect with some of those descendants of those families. Like I said earlier, the most recent wedding was in 1941, Bill Record, And the most recent burial, there are still people buried here. The most recent burial was a month ago, and that was Marvin Record. Special things about are the stories that I was told when I was a child, such as the bell. That is an original bell placed here in the church in 1871 from a company in Cincinnati. It was brought here by riverboat, and it was installed by a group of men from the parish. And to this day, there's lots of excitement for still to be the person that gets to ring the bell. And when it rings out, it's a good sound. It's a deep sound of the faith being passed on, people being called to faith. My dad would also tell a story of when he was younger, the altar was actually moved out away from the wall, and the priest would come in through the back door around the altar. Now the altar is actually moved back and pushed against the wall, so there's no space behind it to get around it. And inside the church, you'll also see lots of evidence of the craftsmanship of Michael Faulhaber and his children, who built the pews, the communion rail, and the cabinets in the sacristy. One other thing that is an authentic part of the church is the painting and the statues that are in the church, because those were originally painted by the DiGiaco brothers in the 1930s, possibly 1937, 1938, as another donation to the church for whatever reason. And for me personally, this place is pretty special because a man named Michael Faulhaber came from Frittlingen, Germany with the body of Christ, built a church with his family and friends, had a son named Michael Faulhaber, who had a daughter named Catherine, who had a son named Bill, who had a son named Marvin, who had a daughter named Rebecca. And that's who I am. And hopefully the tradition will continue of not just one person, but of many people that help to make this place what it is, past, present, and hopefully into the future.